Okay, this is gonna be a long video. I can already feel it. Hey, what's up, ghouls and gals? Happy Halloween. This year for our Halloween special, we are ranking all of the Paranormal Activity films. This is a long time coming for me here on this channel. I've wanted to do this for so many years. We have watched and rewatched these movies over and over again. So, without further ado, it has been years in the making. Let's rank all of the Paranormal Activity movies. Now, before we get into this, let me know in the comments what your favorite Paranormal Activity film is. And before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out all of my links down below if you would like to see any more of me or support the channel any further. I have to briefly begin by telling you about how Paranormal Activity affected me in my younger years. But first, I have to throw this all the way back to 1999. My mom was babysitting my cousin Scott, and he was probably 9. I would say I would be about 6 at the time. Now, his sisters, my older cousins, were going to see the Blair Witch Project, and obviously we were too young for that at the time. But anyways, as soon as they left and we were kind of left with my mom, we were hanging out, the sky started turning black and green and purple, and it was so scary. It was one of the worst storms we'd ever had in our area, and I vividly remember that because I started associating bad weather with the Blair Witch at a very young age. That's not the point of this story, the weather. The actual point of this story is that I remember when my cousins came home, I was like, tell me what happened. And while I cannot recount any of that, I just remember being so scared of the thought of a horror movie, especially the Blair Witch like this. There was so much allure over this being so realistic and found footage. The thought of what could have happened in that film was so much more scary to me than the actual film, I guess, and that happened with me and The People Under the Stairs and The Exorcist, but that's not whatever. About 5 years after I finally got to watch The Blair Witch, I would have been about 11 at this point, and yeah, it was scary. I was fully convinced it was a true story and that this was just a tape that got leaked. The found footage aspect of that scared me beyond belief, and it continued to scare me for so many years. The woods then became a horrific place I did not want to be a part of. But let's fast forward to 2009, and word of Paranormal Activity had just gotten out, and by then I was very much into horror movies, but found footage still scared the absolute crap out of me. Now, at this point, the commercials for Paranormal Activity were on television. They were everywhere. You could not escape them. You either had to go to the Food Network or like the children's TV channels to be safe, and I chose Food Network. But the commercials that had the night vision screenings where you saw genuine fear and terror in people's faces made me so scared because, once again, my thoughts back to the Blair Witch situation. This became a new, like, this is real to me. It looked so real. To me, Katie and Mika were just normal people living their lives, and once again, this was just a tape that got leaked, and to me, a naive teenager, I bought right into it. Like, the Blair Witch kept flooding back to my brain, and suddenly I was so afraid for people that I didn't even know. So in April 2010, I went to Florida with my family, and when I came back, my best friend at the time had saw the movie already without me, and I remember being in my grade 11 parenting class, of all places to have this discussion. I remember having her tell me the movie scene by scene. I was so afraid. I was like, oh my God, what happened with the flower on the floor? What happened? Why did the Ouija board catch fire? Like, I was so afraid. And this was lasting in my brain for months. I ruminated. I thought about Paranormal Activity. I was so convinced it was real until November of 2010, my birthday. Like, I thought that Paranormal Activity was some forbidden film, and now it was on video on demand. And like I said, it was my birthday. I was having a Twilight themed birthday party. So me saying, hey guys, it's like 2 a.m. Do you guys want to watch Paranormal Activity? Divided audiences. I had about 6 girls sleeping over that night. So anyways, I got up the courage to finally watch this movie on my 13-inch tube TV. It was not like, this is the same television that scarred me with The Grudge years prior. But like, a lot of us thought that this was a real life haunted house horror film, and I'm saying a lot of us because some did not partake. Boring. But my mom must have gotten up to pee in the middle of the night, and she must have heard me just acting a fool and being so afraid. So she took the opportunity to burst in my door and scare the absolute living hell out of me. My neighbors probably thought someone was being murdered by the way I was screaming at 2 a.m. But I was in tears, literally thinking that poor Mika and Katie's whereabouts were unknown for so long. And I did in fact sleep with the lights on for a while. I ended up seeing Paranormal Activity 2 in theaters, and seeing Katie back on the screen, I was like, holy shit, oh my god, she's so scary. But I did leave more disappointed than fulfilled from Paranormal Activity 2 because I was once again so afraid of the commercials, and they left out so much of what was in the commercials in the movie, and it was like a whole different film for me. But speaking of the commercials, they were back. The scary Paranormal Activity 2 commercials were back at that point, and you know I was sleeping with the lights on and the Food Network on. But do you want to hear genuine fear? Paranormal Activity 3, when that came out, I was in grade 12. I must have been in grade 12 at that point. Maybe beauty school. Anyways, regardless, my boyfriend at the time was a total dick, and we went to go see the movie together, and I was... like, the introduction of Toby as an entity in this movie changed the game for me, and I spiraled thinking that it followed me home for some reason, and I begged him to walk me upstairs, just please walk me up to my apartment, and he said no, and I walked around looking around every corner, and as like almost a full-grown 18-year-old woman, like I was still slept with the lights on after Paranormal Activity 3. But once Paranormal Activity 4 came out, I felt quite desensitized to the series. It was just really fun to watch and look forward to at that point. I have come to terms then that Mika and Katie were very much alive. But like I said, this is a series that I've watched and rewatched so many times, and it never gets old. Even though they get kind of questionable near the end. But let's begin our ranking. I am going to go from best to worst, okay? Keep that in mind. Let's begin at number 1 with my favorite in the series, Paranormal Activity 3. I truly love this film so much. It caused me so much physical distress and turmoil. This was a true terrifying film for me at one point in my life, and it's still so fun to watch every single time. It has to be my number 1. From 2011, directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, in 1988, young sisters Katie and Christy befriend an invisible entity named Toby who resides in their home. Now, this comes from the guys who brought you the Catfish documentary. Yes, Neve Schulman's brother, and I think that brought a lot of realism to the installment. It did become one of the highest grossing films in the Paranormal Activity franchise. And funnily enough, I think that I was so afraid of it all of these years because of Toby. But Toby was actually named after a production assistant's dog, and finding that out in my 30s was so comical to me. The film was produced under the name Sports Camp to conceal the film's name until its release, and I think that was quite smart. Okay, let's get to what makes this film so interesting. The fan camera, like the oscillating fan, not like a fan, you know, but they decide to rig this giant ass, old ass camera to a fan and oscillate it. And it truly adds such a terrifying element of suspense to the film, especially like when the little ghost appears and then disappears, and waiting for the shoe to drop every time the camera moves drives me insane. Even to this day. The kids are so good at what they do throughout the franchise, and to see the start here makes them more believable, because every time you see them pop up in movies to come, it's like, Ariana, what are you doing here?
Ariana, what are you doing here?
The film has some good comedic relief and fun characters, except for Grandma Lois. I'm gonna take that bitch out one day. She has always scared the absolute shit out of me, because I too had a scary grandma growing up. But this was the installment that really solidified with this series that they could merge found footage storytelling with mainstream horror. And this was really the turning point in the series. A bigger scope, more tension, bolder effects, while still rooted in the family dynamic setting. And I also love that it's a prequel technically, and sets the tone for what Katie and Christy's life was to come, and as well as it lays the groundwork to follow the following films. The Bloody Mary scenes made me feel genuine terror, because that was something I always fully believed in when I was a kid, and the way they were shot, it kept ramping up every time it was done. It's very good. And there's even a scene that got cut from the film where Katie and Christy are doing the Bloody Mary bit, and the mirror shatters, and I think that would have, I think I probably would have pooped myself if I would have seen that in the theater. For this film, they were toying with making Toby a visible entity, but Oren Peli stepped in and said, hey, let's keep him scary and invisible and unseen, and this thing that just lives and lurks in the house. Honestly, I think that was for the best. And also, Paranormal Activity 3 somehow directly links to Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, but we'll get to that later on. But let's circle back to Paranormal Activity, the original from 2007, directed by Oren Peli. That's my guy. He DIY'd that movie, and it's very cool, the making of. After moving into a suburban home, a couple, Katie and Mika, become increasingly disturbed by a demonic presence visiting nightly. This one comes second for me, and I know I previously told you how bad this movie scared me, but why this comes in second is because I didn't get to see this in theaters. I did, however, have such a tumultuous relationship with this specific movie for so long. The mere thought of the film sent me into a panic, thinking our 2-bedroom apartment was haunted, and Paranormal Activity has had such a lasting impact on me to this day, and I still love watching it. And I think of those night vision commercials when the people in theater had genuine fear in their eyes, because that was me thinking about this movie, and it never gets old. It became an instant classic, a staple in the horror community, and now it feels like the series is wrapped up for the most part. Reflecting on this one makes me think of how far we've strayed from the original idea. Now, this movie's total budget was about $15,000, and most of that went to just buying the camera, and Paramount later spent millions marketing it, but the original shoot was basically a glorified home video. Like I said, Oren Peli DIY'd a lot of this. He literally filmed the whole thing in his own suburban San Diego home. He had never made a movie before and didn't have proper lighting or anything like that. They used lamps from IKEA with no real script. He gave the actors objectives each day, like, tonight Mika provokes the ghost, and everything else was their own words. In saying that, Paranormal Activity was a true labor of love and a true found footage masterpiece. It was lightning in a bottle. And it's been really fun exploring the mythos, but nothing will ever top that first entry. Okay, you may think that I would go directly into Paranormal Activity 2, but wait! Paranormal Activity 4 is in third in this ranking. A lot of numbers when you're ranking a series. Now this is once again directed by the Catfish guys. It had been 5 years since the disappearance of Katie and Hunter, and a suburban family witness strange events in the neighborhood when a woman and mysterious child move in. Now, this was a fun entry, don't get me wrong. Honestly, I loved Catherine Newton. This was one of her first roles, if not her first role. I actually really enjoyed the creepy Xbox Connect lighting tricks. It was a sign of the times. The kids are creepy, and it really does show the progression of technology, and we even get more of Katie's story with Hunter from the second movie, which we'll get into next. Just a fun entry overall, a solid film. For me, this explores the past with getting more of Katie's story, with more of Hunter's story, but also trying to explain the lore and mythology in a different kind of way. Now, this is the first Paranormal Activity with webcams and phones. Like I said, it shows the progression of technology. Unlike the earlier home video style, Paranormal Activity 4 leaned more into the early 2010s obsession with Skype calls and laptops and phone cameras, which is still effective to this day. Catherine Newton was only 15 when she starred in this film. She actually helped improvise a lot of her reactions, and the directors encouraged her to play it more like a real teenage girl and not like a seasoned horror actress, which I think she did a really great job at selling the character in this movie. The garage sequence gives me anxiety every single time. It is truly stupid fun. The midwives, or Grandma Lois's creepy witch coven cult, they're on full display. Everyone attached to this film said that the coven storyline was like hanging on by a thread, and I feel like you can see that in continued films, especially the marked ones. And test audiences were actually confused about the shoehorned witch storyline, the coven storyline. So they went back and they reshot a bunch of scenes and added symbols and sigils and things everywhere as Easter eggs to say that yeah, they're here. I would say a lot of Paranormal Activity 4 specifically relies on post-production patchwork at the end. But anyways, we are halfway through our ranking here at number 4, midway through, Paranormal Activity 2, directed by Todd Williams. Just as Daniel and Christy welcome a newborn baby into their home, a demonic presence begins terrorizing them, tearing apart their perfect world and turning it into an inescapable nightmare. Now, I still hold a personal grudge to this film. Yes, it's grown on me over the years, but once again, I will say that the trailer for this film made me feel genuine fear. Like I told you, sleep with the Food Network on fear, because I knew they wouldn't show the commercials. But to my surprise, I'm sitting in the theater and not a single scene from the trailer was in the film. I was so afraid of the pool filter though, sitting there waiting for something to happen the whole time. The reoccurring gag of it though, escaping the pool every morning, was inspired by an actual malfunction, and during test shoots the pool robot kept crawling out of the water. Imagine that happening while you're shooting a Paranormal Activity film. That's so spooky. The crew thought it was hilarious. It ended up being one of the eeriest running jokes during production of the film, I should say. Yes, the film has some really good scares, but to me, it is middle of the road for the franchise, and it only gets worse from here somehow. Technically, it is a prequel. Number 3 is a prequel, but technically this is a prequel, even though it was marketed as a sequel. The first half of Paranormal Activity 2 actually takes place before the events of the first film, and that's why Baby Hunter is still around. The timeline overlaps, and the ending connects directly to the moment Katie kills Mika. Most audiences didn't even realize until the end of the movie. Yes, it will always be a fun film to revisit in the grand scheme of the franchise, but to me, like I said, it is just middle of the road Paranormal Activity for me. And I will say shout out to, I believe her name is Sprague. I'm doing this without my phone. Anyways, Opie's wife from Sons of Anarchy, she is in this movie. But at number 5, we have the 5th film. This is, I feel like you can see where the franchise goes from here, completely downhill. I actually liked Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, and you will see that. Let's get into why I feel upset about where this lies in my ranking. This one is directed by Christopher Landon. 17-year-old Jesse has been hearing terrifying sounds coming from his neighbor's apartment, but when he turns on his camera and sets out to uncover the source, he encounters an ancient evil that won't rest until it claims his very soul. Now, it's funny because I truly love this movie. I really do. I want to so bad put it ahead of Paranormal Activity 2, but I do just have a lot of nostalgia with part 2. I have more feelings attached to that than I do with this one. But the film is great. It's actually funny. It has really good comedic relief and comedic timing, which I do attribute to Christopher Landon. And like, I actually hate that I have this film so far in my rankings, but I do feel in my heart the other films are stronger than this entry. Unlike the earlier, like, stationary camera style, this one was really into the handheld cam, found footage, almost like a Cloverfield Chronicle vibe, and Christopher Landon said he wanted to make a possession movie that felt alive, so Jesse's GoPro footage gave it that kind of messy realism. Now, there is a dimension portal that Jesse runs through at the end, and it doesn't just reflect Paranormal Activity 1, it is the exact same house from the original movie. The crew rebuilt Oren Pelly's house, Katie and Mika's kitchen, exactly to match the 2007 layout, down to the cereal box on the counter. The scene where Jesse appears in the first film's timeline was recreated shot for shot. It's a really cool callback to the first film, and how everything connects to this point is really fun, but the portal shit is about to get real out of hand. At number 6, the second last film, the almost worst entry, Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension. Directed by Gregory Plotkin, using a special camera that can see spirits, a family must protect their daughter from an evil entity with a sinister plan. Okay, here we go. This is a mess. Like, this is goofy. And I guess it's the seasonal, Christmas-themed Paranormal Activity, and I don't know, it doesn't really make it feel any better, but they actually shot so many scenes using 3D cameras, so audiences could see the demon, and it was marketed with the tagline, "For the first time you'll see the activity." Don't play me with this is tomfoolery I didn't want in my life. The 3D effects were done with like dust and water and particle effects instead of CGI, which, like, whatever, but this is a major misstep for the series. The mystery of the actual Paranormal Activity feels stripped away. We don't need to see the paranormal. The way it plays with other senses is so much scarier. The ghost dimension camera seen in the film was real. It was custom built. It was a prop made with an infrared sensor and LED lighting so it could pick up on visual distortions on set. So what you see through it, those like swirling black energy tendrily thingies, they were composited over genuine camera feedback. And Paramount insisted this was the end of the series and closing Toby's arc, but the 2021 reboot, Next of Kin, quietly revived the brand with an entirely separate storyline. So from one terrible film to another, let's end with Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, the worst film in the franchise. Directed by William Eubank, Margot is a documentary filmmaker looking to meet her long-lost mother and extended family in a secluded Amish community. She and her film crew soon realize the family that welcomes them into their home may be hiding a sinister secret. Please, Will, please. William Eubank, please. I was just praising him in my underwater video for how incredible his directing was. Now this was hot garbage. Truly the worst entry in the franchise. And upon rewatch, it was worse than ever. Even though this was written by my guy Christopher Landon, it did not save this at all. I will firstly say the direct to streaming release made this feel so cheap and like it was just made for people who've never seen a horror film or any of the Paranormal Activity films for this fact. It could have been a standalone movie with a totally different name. The story follows Margot and her documentary crew, where strange rituals and hidden demonic legacy await, but a key figure in this film is the demon Asmodeus. We are no longer dealing with Toby. The whole story explains the community has been containing the demon across generations via a bloodline and ritual system. There's a newborn two-headed goat that's sacrificed in a barn, so I guess that's a memorable visual. Also, even though this film is technically built around a documentary crew, it sets it up for found footage. It does not fully commit to found footage. It has large sections that are traditional filmmaking, and it's such a strange amalgamation. There's so much confusion in this film trying to connect it to the actual series. I do feel like this film deserves to be last place. It feels so out of line, out of place in the Paranormal Activity franchise. It was not good. But I will put on your radar where I got a lot of my information from: Unknown Dimension, the story of Paranormal Activity. This is a documentary from 2021, a deep dive into the making of Paranormal Activity, with first time ever interviews with cast and crew and never before seen footage from the films, and a preview of the 7th installment, Next of Kin. But this technically comes before Next of Kin and leads into that one. I won't give away too much because a lot of the facts in this video come from that documentary, but if you enjoy the franchise as a whole, this is a really fun deep dive with a lot of the main characters, directors Oren Peli, Jason Blum, Christopher Landon, so many more familiar faces. It is so nice that I can go to bed at night and know that Mika's whereabouts is not unknown. And that wraps up our Paranormal Activity ranking, our Paranormal Activity special. After all these years, I'm still watching and mostly enjoying the series. I can't believe how afraid I used to be, reflecting on my teen years and how much this movie affected and weighed on me and made me so scared. It's so comical to think about how little Ashley was just so scared of found footage. I lost so much sleep over Paranormal Activity, but let me know your favorite Paranormal Activity movie in the comments. I would love to know. And if you've made it this far, I hope you have a wonderful Halloween this year. Please do not drink and drive. Always check your candy. Follow the rules from Trick or Treat, and I will see you in my next video. Sayonara, Spooky Fam.